We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Zayin and Beis in Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 57b. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing the halacha that by a bechor, the meat of the bechor is given to the Kohanim, and they have 2 days and a night to eat the meat from the animal that is a bechor. And the Gemara in the previous summit brought a brisa. The brisa brings the pasuk which says, "Uvesaram yu lach," that the meat again of the bechor is going to be lach, is going to be to you for the Kohanim. And the pasuk goes on to say, "Kachazei hatanufa ucheshok hayom," that it's going to be like the chaz of a shok. And so the brisa says that's a comparison to the chaz of a shok. That's the breast and the thigh of the carbon shlamim. There also the amount of time that it has to be eaten is 2 days and a night. And so therefore, again, the same thing is going to be true when it comes to bechor. The amount of time is going to be 2 days and a night. And in the course of that brisa, there is a machlokas tanoim between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, whether there would have been a possibility to learn out instead from the chaz of a shok, that's by the carbon toda, which is only for 1 day and a night. Maybe we would have thought to learn from there and not from the carbon shlamim. Rabbi Akiva says that that is a real possibility. We could have said to learn from the carbon toda, and therefore Rabbi Akiva brings a pasuk that says no, we actually compare it to the carbon shlamim. There is an extra day, it's 2 days and a night by bechor, but Rabbi Shmuel says it's impossible to learn from carbon toda, because carbon toda itself really is learned through a hekesh from shlamim, and therefore it would be a problem of a double hekesh. Something that's learned through a hekesh cannot teach through a hekesh, and therefore there's no way we would have learned from carbon toda. We clearly learned from carbon shlamim. And the Gemara asked, what exactly is the nekudas hamachlokas, the point of argument between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva? And the Gemara said, this case, it's not clear that it really is a double hekesh, because that first hekesh between shlamim and carbon toda, some of those halachas are learned from hekesh, but some of those halachas are actually learned, written by carbon toda. By carbon toda, it actually does say a day and a night. That's not learned through hekesh, but in terms of it being the chaz of a shok specifically, that is learned through a hekesh shlamim. And so the question is that really called a hekesh or not? And that's the machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva says that's not really called a hekesh, so it's not a problem of a double hekesh. That's why in theory we could have learned from carbon toda. But Rabbi Shmuel says no, it's still considered to be a hekesh. And the Gemara asked, if one says that it is still considered to be a hekesh like Rabbi Shmuel, so then we would seemingly have a problem by Yom Kippur, because by Yom Kippur we also have what seems to be a double hekesh, but again, some of the halachas are actually written in the psukim themselves. The double hekesh involves the par and the soyer of Yom Kippur. So lifnai v'lifnim, they're sprinkled in the same way, and then also in the heichel they're sprinkled in the same way, and you have a double hekesh. First you have a hekesh between the animals, and then you have a hekesh between the makomos, between the locations of lifnai v'lifnim, of the Kodesh Kodashim, and of the rest of the heichel. And so that should also be a problem, again, of a double hekesh, according to Rabbi Shmuel. And the Gemara answered on the previous Amud that since the hekesh involves different elements, first you have a hekesh between the animals, and then you have a hekesh between the makomos, the locations, that's actually not a problem of a double hekesh. But the Gemara continues and gives another answer. V'bayasem, if you want, we could say, chutz mipnim bechad zimna gomer, when we're learning outside from inside, meaning from the heichel, from the lifnai v'lifnim, that's all learned at one time. And Rashi explains the answer, Hachi Garcina, and this is the proper text, V'bayasem chutz mipnim bechad zimna gomer, the outside from the inside is learned in one time. V'hachi isa b'seder yuma, and this is what it says in Meseches Yuma, beperak hotziulo, and perak hotziulo, kilomar means to say as follows, Nihin nami dehekesh mekomos kehekesh behemos. Even if we would grant that the comparison between the locations, again the heichel and the lifnai v'lifnim, is the same as the comparison between the animals, and it really could be a problem in that sense of a double hekesh. Hoel vehekesh tzorech penim hu, since the hekesh is tzorech penim, afilu hachi lo dami lahu del el, since it is a tzorech penim, and so therefore it all has to do with the same basic idea, still says Rashi, it's not similar to the double hekesh where it's problematic earlier. De'ilu heichel, because when it comes to the heichel, kula milsa boy lemelaf mipnim, everything needs to be learned from what is happening mipnim, from what is happening lifnai v'lifnim, meaning all of the halachas that are going to be relevant to the heichel are learned from what's going on lifnai v'lifnim, in terms of the application, the sprinklings of the blood from the par v'soyer. Va'aidi denitan hekesh lidorish bidvarim hamefurashim bifnim. Now once we're already using the hekesh in order, and that's going to be effective for whatever is explained explicitly inside lifnai v'lifnim, kimo lamata bepor lamala bisor, for example, the sprinklings below with regards to the bull, and the sprinklings above with regards to the he-goat that were mentioned on the previous Amud. So once we're already going to use the hekesh somewhat, so nidrish v'lamad bevas achas, then we can learn everything bevas achas uva, it's not going to be a problem. It will come uva af mashalamad bifnim behekeshima, we're going to be able to include even that which was learned lifnai v'lifnim with a hekesh. And so that's what it means to say bechad zimna gomer, since chutz is being learned from pnim in its entirety, therefore it's not a problem to include things, elements that might have been learned through a hekesh. V'gabe hekesh del'el nami, and Rashi says in terms of the hekesh earlier also, we would apply the same logic in theory. Im kasav b'toda v'hukash b'chor l'toda, let's say there was something written by Toda, and then b'chor is learned through a hekesh from Toda. Lilmod lo chazav v'shok, in order to learn chazav v'shok, v'lemadata b'hekesh, and it would be learned through a hekesh, you have a hukash b'chor l'toda atzma. So if there was a comparison directly between b'chor and Toda itself, not just the chazav v'shok of Toda, v'hayolamed mimena tenufas chazav v'shok, v'achilas yom v'layla, and we would learn from there the waving of the chazav v'shok, and again the eating for a day and a night. Demitoch sheyachola lilmod olav zman la'achila shu kasaba, because once we're already using the hekesh to learn the time frame for eating, the day and a night, which is written over there. Melamedes nami olav tenufas chazav v'shok. We can also use the hekesh for tenufas chazav v'shok. Aval hashda l'toda atzma lo hikisha kasab. But in this situation, it was not a comparison directly to the Toda. Ela l'chazav v'shok shebetoda. It was just a comparison to the chaza and shok within Toda. Uvitoda atzma lo limadata ela behekesh, and by Toda itself, that was only learned through a hekesh, and that's why it's more problematic there of the double hekesh. That's the answer of chutz mipnim b'chad zimna gamir. And the Gemara continues, B'shlama laman da'amar lo have a hekesh, the Bach adds in the word lo. It makes sense according to the one who says that it's not considered to be a hekesh, again in a situation where some of it is written by the halacha itself and some of it is learned through a hekesh, that is not considered to be a hekesh. And again, that was the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. That's why it wasn't a problem, again, of a double hekesh in terms of learning Bechor from the Karban Toda. So it makes sense according to Rabbi Akiva. So Hainu D'chsiv, that's what's written in the Pasuk, and this is by the Shtei HaLechem that are brought on Shavuos. It says, Mimoshvosechem taviu lechem tenufa, you're going to bring lechem tenufa, the bread of waving. She'ein tamid lomar taviu, the pasuk over there does not need to say taviu, it's an extra word. Ma tamid lomar taviu, why does the pasuk say taviu? It means as follows, kol shata mevi mimokom acher, anything you bring similar in a different situation, by a different place, that's referring to the lachme toda, the bread that accompany, the breads that accompany a Karban Toda. We're learning a halacha from the bread of Atzeres, from the Shtei HaLechem, to the bread by the Karban Toda, and we're learning harehu kaza, it's like a hekesh, it's a comparison, it's the same. Malahalon isaron lechala, just like by the Shtei HaLechem, each challah, each loaf is an isaron, that's 1/10 of an ephah. Afkan isaron lechala, so too when it comes to the bread of the Karban Toda, each loaf is going to be an isaron, is going to be 1/10 of an ephah. Ima lahalon shnei esronim, now you might think that over there the total is 2 esronim, 2 isaron, so afkan shnei esronim, maybe over here the total of all of the loaves should be shnei esronim. Talmud lomar tihiyena, so the pasuk says tihiyena, and that teaches us again that you're going to have, it ends up being 10 chalos, and each one is an isaron. That's what happens when it's the breads of the Karban Toda, of each kind of bread there are 10 loaves, and again, each one is going to be an isaron. V'lamadnu asara l'chametz, and we learn from here that from the chametz loaves that are brought by the Karban Toda, there's going to be 10. Asara l'matzah minayin, how do you know that you have 10 isaron when it comes to the matzah loaves? This is talking about the matzah loaves again by Karban Toda, so that's from a hekesh. Talmud lomer al chalas lechem chametz, it says al chalas lechem chametz, the full al chalos lechem chametz, the full pasuk over there, al chalos lechem chametz yakriv karbano al zevach todas shalomov, and so we learn from that pasuk neged chametz have matzah, that corresponding to the chametz, that's how the matzah should be brought. And the point over here is this also is a double hekesh, but it's also a double hekesh where some of the information is in the halach itself. It's not all being derived through a hekesh, so that works according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that's not considered to be a hekesh if some of the halachas are actually written by the case itself, so it makes sense. But according to the one who says have a hekesh, that it is a hekesh, according to Rabbi Yishmael, that is considered to be a hekesh, don't you have a problem of a double hekesh over here? How do we have this limud, Ma'ikol Amemar, what are we going to say? And the Gemara answers, Taviu Yiseirahi, the word Taviu is extra, and therefore from that extra word we're able to derive it in this situation. And Rashi explains, Hainu D'chsiv Mimoshvosechem, that's what it says, again written in the pasuk Mimoshvosechem, by the Shtei HaLechem, Gabe Shtei HaLechem D'Atzeres Ksiv. This pasuk is by the Shtei HaLechem that are brought on Atzeres, that are brought on Shavuos. V'utzrachnu b'Meseches Menachos, Lilmod Mehem Kama Isronos Yesh, B'lach Meitod. In Meseches Menachos, we actually use the Shtei HaLechem as the source in order to learn how many Isaron are brought by the Lach Meitoda. Uvegufa Nichtav Yud Chalos B'chol Min. Now, by Lach Meitoda, it does say By lachmei toda itself, it already says that it's 10 loaves from every single type of bread that is brought. Avalon isparish mikama hi hachala, but it doesn't say exactly in terms of how much each chala is, that it's an isaron. Umaisi lo lechalos chametz shebetoda. So we learn in terms of the loaves that are chametz by carbon toda, we learn that mishtei halechem. We learn that from the shtei halechem. Sha'af hein chametz, because those are also chametz. V'hakos of hikush and the pasuk is making a comparison. Kol habos shel chametz sheyu shavos. Everything that comes from chametz should be equal the same. Umikra yisera de taviu yalfinan line. We're learning it from the extra word in the pasuk taviu. To lo itzrich, you don't need that word. It says you're going to bring this mincha chadasha taviu, and then it says you're going to bring lechem tenufa. For lo itzrich taviu, that word taviu is not needed. It already says you're going to bring it. Ma tam v'lomar taviu. Why does it say taviu? Kol chametz shatamevi mimakom acher yehei kazeh. Means anytime you bring chametz in a different situation, lachmei toda. So then it's going to be the same. Isaron lachal. It's going to be an isaron for every loaf. Like it says over here, by the shtei halechem, it's 2 of them, and each one is an isaron. And then the Gemara said, well, ima lahalon elu shnei esronim, if over here it's 2 esronim total, af elu kol yud chalos sheba shnei esronim, maybe all 10 loaves should be equal to shnei esronim. Talmud lomar tiyena, the pasuk says tiyena, hasam mefarish my limuda beparak hatoda. Over there it's learned out exactly what is this limud from tiyena. In the Shinuya Nuschos, the Shinuya Nuschos says Talmuda. Again, over there, it's going to be learned out the way that we're learning from the word Tiyena. Lamadnu asara isronos l'chametz. And Rashi continues. So fine, we see that there are 10 isronos, 10 isaron, when it comes to the chametz by the lachmei toda. The hayur chalos lamudos ba b'gzerashave mitrumas meiser matrumas meiser echad meyeser af trumas toda. We know Trumas Meiser is 1/10, so too by Toda, you have to separate one of the loaves, 1/10. V'hikriv mimenu echon mikol karbon, mikol min shruma l'Hashem, one from every set of loaves is brought as a truma to Hashem. That's echon me'eser, that's 1 out of 10. Harei yud chalos, so we know there are 10 chalos there. Uvehekesh taviu, lamadnu sha'chal isaron. Through the hekesh of taviu, we understand that the chala, that each loaf is an isaron. Harei lamadnu yud esronos l'chametz. So you see, there are 10 loaves, each one an isaron by the chametz. Heimenu v'davar acher, and that's a case of heimenu v'davar acher. You do have some of that halacha is learned from the psukim itself, and some is learned from somewhere else. Yud chalos lamanu behen kvar. We already know there are 10 chalos. Uvehekesh, and then through the hekesh again to shtei halechem hein lamedos isaron l'chal. That's how we know it's an isaron for every loaf. Asari isaron l'shloshas minin shebematzah minayin. Now, 3 of the types of bread are matzah. So how do you know those are each 10 loaves that are each an isaron? Talmud lomar al chalas lechem chametz. It says al chalas lechem chametz, meaning mona hakasav minin shebematzah. What happened in this pasuk is the pasuk describes the various kinds of matzah loaves. V'chazav acharein al chalos lechem chametz, and then it says al chalos lechem chametz. Harei hekesh, that's a hekesh, it's a comparison. Al mechametz shelamadnu bo asara isronos behemenu v'davar acher. By chametz, what we learn out, there's 10 isaron, and again, that's heimenu v'davar acher, partially learned internally, partially learned through a hekesh. Chozer melamed al matzah, it's able to teach matzah behekesh asara isronos, again through a hekesh, teaching 10 isaron, and so that's the same problem of a double hekesh. If you hold a double hekesh as a problem, even by heimenu v'davar acher, so how do we understand it? And the Gemara answered, taviu ribuyu, the word taviu is an inclusion. What that means is, l'rabos chametz shebetoda, it's an inclusion, and saying that the chametz loaves by toda, shekol shtayim shebo, yehu shtayim esronim, that every 2 of them should be 2 isaron, meaning each one should be an isaron. V'havi commandich sibbegufe, and with that word, it's not simply a hekesh, it's as if it's actually written there, belach metoda, it's written by lach metoda, it's not considered a hekesh anymore. V'la mishtei halechem gamri, it's not considered to be learned from shtei halechem. V'hechi dami de lahavi hemenu v'davar acher. Now, what would be a scenario that it would be considered heimenu v'davar acher? Could go, and that would be, for example, like this: Iyizkish chametz to toda l'shtei halechem b'kra achrina. Let's say chametz of toda was compared to shtei halechem in another pasuk, to lo mefarish ba isaron l'chala, where it doesn't say isaron l'chala. V'alfinan toda mishtei halechem behekesh l'isaron l'chala, and then through a hekesh we would have learned toda from shtei halechem that it should be an isaron over the day ksivi eser chalos, and then over there it did say 10 loaves. That would have been a case of heimenu v'davar acher. But in this situation with the taviu, it's as if it's actually written by lachmei toda, and that's why it's not a problem of a double hekesh. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "Ha-Pesach eino nechol." When it comes to Karban Pesach, it's only eaten, again, to those who register to the Karban Pesach, it's only eaten roasted, and it's eaten until Chatzos. And the Gemara says, "Man taught the Tan of the Mishnah that says that the Karban Pesach is eaten until Chatzos." Amar Rav Yosef says, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, the author of the Mishnah, is Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah says, "Nemar kan balayla hazeh." It says over here by Karban Pesach, balayla hazeh. V'nemar lahalan, and it says further on, "V'yavarti beretz Mitzrayim balayla hazeh." That's talking about makas bechoros. It also uses the term balayla hazeh. Malahalon ad chatzos, just like over there, it's until chatzos. The makas bechoros happened at midnight. Afkan ad chatzos. So too over here, in terms of eating the Karban Pesach, it is until midnight. That's the opinion of Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, and that's the opinion of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. And the Brisa continues, Amar le Rabbi Akiva. Amar lo Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said to Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, "V'alo kvar nemar ve'achaltem oso b'chipazon," but it says that it should be eaten b'chipazon, in a rushed manner. And doesn't that mean ad shas chipazon, until the time when there was chipazon? That's referring to the morning when Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim. Rashi says, ad shas chipazon shem nechpazim lo leches, when they were hurried in order to leave. V'hainu l'or haboker, that would be till the morning you have to eat it. K'nechsiv v'atem lo seitzu ishmi pesach beisu ad boker, like it says in the pasuk that the people couldn't leave, the person couldn't leave his house until boker, until morning. And so therefore Rabbi Akiva argues it really should be until the morning to eat the Karban Pesach. Imkein matam v'lomer balayla hazeh, but if so, why does the pasuk say balayla hazeh? Sheyachol, because one might think yehei kechol hakachim, that it should be like all other kachim, like all other karbanos, hanecholim biyom, that those are eaten during the day. Talmud lomer balayla, the pasuk says balayla yehei nechol, the Karban Pesach is eaten specifically at night, ve'eno nechol biyom, and it is not eaten during the day. That's how Rabbi Akiva understands the psukim. And the Gemara says, Amar le Abaya, Abaya said to him, this is Abaya responding to Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef just said that our Mishnah is Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, and Abaya says, Umimaid Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah udo raisa. How do you know that our Mishnah is Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah on a do raisa level? Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah says you have until Chatzos mido raisa to eat the Karban Pesach and no longer. But Dilma de Rabbanan, maybe our Mishnah is the Rabbanan, and really on a do raisa level you could eat until the morning. Ulaharchik minhu avera, but in order to distance oneself from avera, we say that it should be done by Chatzos. It's in order laharchik minhu avera on a derabanan level that we say until chatzos, and maybe that's the explanation of the Mishnah. And the Gemara says to that, if so, my elo ad chatzos. Why does it say only until chatzos? Elo ki hasam, rather it means like over there, the rest of the cases that are listed in the Mishnah, or the rest of requirements in the Mishnah as far as Karban Pesach, that it should be roasted, etc. Ma hasam doraisa, just like there, all of those other halachas are doraisa. Afkanami doraisa, so too this halacha until chatzos is a doraisa in the Mishnah. That's why it's clear that the Mishnah is following Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. Rashi explains, Yochel yehinechel kashar kol hakotchim b'yom zvichaso kodem shetechshach yaschil ochlo, other karbanos on the day of the slaughtering, before it gets dark, that's when you begin to eat. Imir said, if a person wants to. Talmud lomer, that's what the pasuk says at night, specifically the Karban Pesach is eaten at night. Laharchik es ha'adam kedetanan bekulu ad chatzos, we're distancing a person from avera, like it says until chatzos in all these cases. Imkein my ella, if so, why does it say ella? Listen, v'nechel ad chatzos kedetanan bekulu, it should just say it's eaten until chatzos, like the other karbanos where it mentions that. Why here by Karban Pesach does it say ella ad chatzos? Ki hasam, it means like there, meaning dumya delaylo menuya vutzli. It's similar to the other halachas by Karban Pesach that it should be eaten at night. To those who register, it should be eaten roasted. Tanya dehav doraisa, this one also, those are doraisa, and this also is doraisa. Hadron alach ezehu mekoman, we will return to you. Perek ezehu mekoman, this is the end of the 5th perek of Meseches Zevachim. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe, and take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will begin the next video on Daf Nun Ches Amud Aleph.